Dr. Weston, Dr. Davis, Dr. Kiano, to have an opportunity to participate in this most important and significant conference. Dr. Davis was generous enough to make some reference to the fact that I am descendant from diseases, and as events are beginning to show us, it is a land of immense importance to the world and to the United States of America. And so, with the help of organizations such as yours, we are beginning to look at a continent so long behind God's back, coming into its own. We see some 200 million people being awakened in some cases from centuries of sleep, and we see the ideas of freedom being reborn, and we see the birth pangs of independence which we experienced being suffered anew. We see the problems of national development, of modern civilization, weighing down the shoulders of a new generation. We see above all the image of modern man being created in a vast new land under difficult and new conditions. And we are especially or forever in bondage. From a small spark kindled in America, a flame has arisen not to be extinguished, wrote Thomas Paine during the American Revolution. And that very flame today is being lightened in what was once called the Dark Continent. In the light of such fantastic, dare not think of Africa in terms of our own self-interest alone. But neither should we shrink from the tremendous problems of Africa with an excess of caution. For they are the problems of the greatest triumph which modern man is now experiencing. They are problems attendant upon newly won freedom. They are the problems of a continent with an unlimited future, not a poor continent, let me stress, not even a poor continent today, but a rich continent filled with millions of poor people. For today has denied to history the body of literature that any culture needs to record if it is going to sustain itself. And for this reason, if no other, this society is especially important. Our goal for the good of Africa, for the good of the West, is a strong Africa. A strong Africa can only result from a strong people. And no people can become strong in a climate of servitude and moral indignity. What can the United States do? Through our mutual security program, economic aid to Africa has been increased from $10 million. This cannot be the development of large industry. These are still, for the most part, primitive economies. There is an acute shortage of managerial and skilled labor. Our aid now should be concentrated not on large-scale monuments to American engineering, but on the village and the farm, on increasing productivity and diversifying one-crop economies. And that is why it is not enough to say that private capital can do the job. Private overseas investment in Africa has been concentrated largely in the few metropolitan areas, in the cities and districts dominated by Europeans, in mining gold, diamonds, copper, and uranium. It avoids the jungle village in need of light industry, the farm in need of modern equipment, the hungry and illiterate people looking for a better way of life. I do not. 50% increase has been proposed for 1960, but a 500% increase could not do the job. Let me stress, however, that economic progress in Africa is a responsibility not alone for this country or for the Africans themselves. It is also the responsibility for European countries which have for centuries extracted wealth from Africa. Perhaps the most effective way to provide financial help for investment, development, and personnel might be through multilateral cooperation with African, European, American, and other countries in an African regional economic plan. Such a program should properly be initiated by the independent African states and be sufficient elastic to negotiate and coordinate bilateral and multilateral arrangements. The African states would participate on a basis of complete equality as givers as well as receivers. Tied in sued up to some years ago, particularly before World War II, of associating itself with the cause of independence around the world. Now, I believe that the history of the last 10 and 15 years is clear for all of us to see. Africa is going to be, within the foreseeable future, a continent composed of independent countries. I am vitally concerned, stretching all the way from Algeria in North Africa to the southern tip of Africa, that when these countries are free and independent, that they look towards the United States as an ally in this struggle and not as one who remained neutral and indifferent. Dante once said that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. I do not believe the United States can maintain its neutrality in this struggle. I feel that we should feel a figure felt once when he said that he was irresistibly excited whenever in any country I see an oppressed people unfurl the banner of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davis and Dr. Bond and Senator Dr. Kiano, distinguished platform guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Dr. Davis, perhaps you can tell me what you do when you follow a United States Senator and Porgy and Bess. The thought did occur to me, however, that this, in another way, may be a very historic occasion because as you look at the program, you will see that I am sandwiched in between two potential, at least, heads of government.
Senator Kennedy, Mr. Diggs, distinguished visitors, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very important message for you all. The African love for freedom is expressed not only through African nationalism, but in all walks of life. All of you are very aware that the African, in his songs, in his social organizations, in his cultural clubs, in his religious organizations, all the time he is seeking to express that spirit of freedom, the freedom to express himself, because inside he has that very irresistible spirit, the spirit to express himself, the spirit to contribute to the world what he has in himself, the spirit to love and be hospitable to other people, and the spirit to resist those who try to confine him on the basis of his race or on the basis of his cultural background to a position inferior to other men. And that is why concede that there can be any justification anytime for any one race, one nation, or any one country to rule or to dominate or otherwise subjugate another race. I believe that those who are interested in Africa, whether they are governments or churches, colonial servants or missionaries, should first realize that they first must believe, first and foremost, that the African should be free as of right, and then directly or indirectly participate in the process of making this possible. It is in this regard that I want to underline the noble sentiments and the very practical proposals put forward by the honorable senator from Massachusetts, Senator Kennedy. What this country needs, when I say this country, I mean the United States, is leaders who take a positive, practical, and courageous stand with regard to U.S. policy towards Africa. We need people who do not stand on the fence, who say, yes, we believe in freedom, but at the same time are too afraid to hurt the feelings of their colleagues in Europe. And therefore they say, we believe in freedom of men, but we are not very sure whether the African is ready for it. That has been the characteristic, I am sorry to say, of the official policy of the United States government. And I must say, it is not a policy that excites sentiment and belief and hope when we read it. And today, I was in